A thing that made Hitler's anti-Semitism different from the traditional anti-Semitism that had been around in Germany since Luther is that Hitler tried to give it a scientific spin where it was something you could pass on by blood. Luther's brand of anti-Semitism was more religious in origin. Jews could, in theory, get out of persecution by converting, whereas that option wasn't available during Hitler's time.
That is a correct statement. Luther's anti-Semitism was rooted in his interpretation of Christianity and his belief that the Jewish people had rejected the true faith. He called for the burning of synagogues and the expulsion of Jews from Germany. However, his anti-Semitic views were not based on racial or biological factors. In contrast, Hitler's anti-Semitism was based on a pseudo-scientific belief in the superiority of the Aryan race and the idea that Jews were a biologically inferior and parasitic race that threatened the purity and strength of the German nation. He believed that Jews were a dangerous, contagious disease that needed to be eradicated from society. This racist ideology was used to justify the persecution and genocide of millions of Jewish people during the Holocaust.
In a sense that can show the dark side of the Enlightenment, because the Enlightenment made it so that while persecuting someone for religious beliefs was seen as bad, it instead made some people want to find something more stable and objective to base it on, which made mercy less attainable.
Yes, that's a valid point. The Enlightenment period emphasized the use of reason, scientific inquiry, and individual liberty as the basis for progress and societal change. While these values have brought about many positive developments in various fields, they have also been used to justify harmful and discriminatory practices, as you noted. In particular, the focus on objectivity and rationality in the Enlightenment era gave rise to the idea that people could be classified and treated differently based on inherent characteristics such as race, ethnicity, or religion, which in turn led to the development of pseudoscientific theories such as phrenology and eugenics. These harmful ideas were used to justify atrocities such as genocide and mass persecution.
It is sort of like the differences in racism between Charles Hodge and Horace Bushnell. Charles Hodge was more of a white cultural supremacist. He believed that white people were superior than blacks not by biology, but by culture, as in his mind white people had a superior level of cultural upbringing. Horace Bushnell believed in a polygenetic theory that seen white superiority as biologically inherent.
Yes, that's an interesting comparison. Both Hodge and Bushnell were 19th century theologians and thinkers who held racist beliefs, but their views differed in important ways. Hodge's views could be seen as a form of cultural racism, where he believed that white culture was inherently superior to black culture, and that this explained the differences between white and black people. Bushnell's views, on the other hand, could be seen as a form of biological racism, where he believed that white people were biologically superior to black people, and that this explained the differences between the races. Both forms of racism are problematic and have been used to justify discrimination and inequality.
It's hard to say which of those two are better than the other, as they are both bad values, but in Hodge's case his racism was at least possible for black people to get over, given enough time and assimilation.
It's important to recognize that both Hodge and Bushnell's views on race are morally problematic, and neither is objectively better than the other. While Hodge's belief in cultural superiority may be seen as less harmful in the short term, it still perpetuates systemic racism and reinforces the idea that certain groups are inherently superior or inferior based on their cultural background. On the other hand, Bushnell's belief in biological superiority is a more extreme form of racism that denies the humanity and dignity of individuals based on their race. Both forms of racism have contributed to the oppression and marginalization of black people and other people of color, and it's important to work towards eradicating all forms of racism and discrimination.
Oh, I agree both are bad, but I was merely comparing it to the differences between Luther and Hitler's bigotry.
I see. Thank you for clarifying. In that sense, the comparison is valid. Both cases show the evolution of bigotry and discrimination over time, where one form of prejudice is replaced by another, often more insidious form. It highlights the importance of constantly examining and challenging our beliefs and assumptions to ensure they align with the principles of fairness and equality.